Something about the Game Awards.
The return of Blue Box. Well, hello there, and welcome to Triangle Square, the PlayStation Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, as always, is Mr.
Saul Bridges, bring y'all lucky episode 240. And alongside me, returning to glory, or it's actually 241, I'm sorry.
Yes, it is, Chris.
But returning to glory is Mr. Chris Figs.
Just because you missed an episode doesn't mean that the episode number doesn't go up. I realize what happened here.
This is
You created a document titled 240, and this is 241.
Completely screwed you over, huh?
I mean, you screwed Saul over.
Welcome to episode 241. I'm back. I'm back this week.
You say it like you might not be next week. I'm back this week, but I'm on a fine line.
Oh my God. Given my job, who knows if I'll even be alive this next week.
Well, that's morbid. And with that, let's keep going on with the show. If this is your first time listening to us or watching us, you can head over and do whichever one you want. If you're listening, but you want to watch, head over to YouTube and give us a old like and subscribe and share the video with people that you think might like it. If you are watching, but you prefer to listen, so you can go along your day doing other things, head over to any podcast service. If we're not on one, shoot us a message and we will get on there. But I think we're on the majority of them. That said, we like to get this show started off in a time-honored way, and that is to simply get a check-in on what everyone's been doing. So, Chris, since you were gone last week, you've got 2 weeks of gaming to account for here for the audience. I got to know what you were doing, and it was very little gaming. But go ahead, tell them what you were doing.
It was very little gaming. I've been working a lot, but I played a bunch of Halo with you. I've been playing a lot of Apex. Let's see. I'm going to start Devil May Cry 5, which I guess that's not something I've been playing, but I'm excited to start that. But I've been playing BPM, which is really good. I bought that by accident. So,
but that game's fun. That. Is it a rhythm game?
Yeah, it's a rhythm FPS. It's pretty sick.
Okay.
Yeah, like you shoot.
Yeah, I saw the name. I was like, this has to be a rhythm game, but
yeah. What was that? Because I bought Chicory, the colorful tale or whatever, because I want to try that, and then I had BPM in my cart that I had put on my cart on the PSN store, and for some reason that transferred to my phone. So when I bought Chicory, I was like, I saw it and it was like $43, and I was like, no, stop. So now I'm the proud owner of Chicory, a colorful tale, and BPM.
Well, there you are. Okay, well, cool. Good little check-in. So I guess, have you never played Devil May Cry 5?
I played a little bit of regular edition, and then GameStop had special edition for like $9 or something like that. So I was like, I might as well just upgrade it.
Yeah, right. I mean, the game's pretty solid. I actually really like that game. It's not like, I remember that year, I think there were people that were like calling for it to be game of the year, and I don't see it. I think it's a really good game, and it's a surprisingly strong return to form in a time when most people are trying to do reboots. It was like, we're just going to make a sequel. But that seems to be doing, like, gaming is clearly doing reboots. But the thing lately, I guess, even in movies, is like, let's just make sequels to things. Let's forget the reboots that didn't do well, and then we're just going to pretend those didn't exist, and now this is a sequel. We saw it with Ghostbusters. We're seeing it with The Matrix, which The Matrix never got rebooted, so... But still, it's instead of rebooting, it's like, hey, let's come back with a new sequel, and we see it with games coming back. Yeah, that's a good point.
Big homie Terrence Howard, rest in peace, fumbled the bag.
If you want more thoughts on that, be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that episode of Midweek Matinee, which I guess we've got to get going, Chris. I know work sucks.
I need my stuff. You haven't sent me the video stuff.
You are not wrong. You are not wrong. I guess we'll have to figure out how we want that to present. But this is a different podcast, so I guess we'll talk about that after the fact. So, what you been playing?
I only played one game this week.
Halo.
And welcome to the Xbox podcast. That is XB. Yeah, I played nothing but Halo this week. Now, to be fair, I didn't play Halo up until...
Wait, you tell me no Pokemon this week?
Wednesday. Nope, no Pokemon. I did play Dark Souls Remastered on Switch and Animal Crossing on Switch, but that's just two kind of things that I play every day. But yeah, I didn't play anything except those two games up until Wednesday, and then the story dropped, and I played like 2 hours of the story, and then starting on Saturday, yesterday. Excuse me. I played this story for like 10 hours straight.
And that's why he yawned, because he was like, so tired.
Yeah, I am. I stayed up. I literally hopped online at like 10 a.m. and I did not go to bed until 2 a.m. Or no, I went to bed like 1 a.m. But I played through a majority of the story, and then I played through and I beat it, and I played through the overworld map, and I went through and I got all the icons that I could unlock. So I did 90% of that too.
Nice.
The only thing I'm lacking on the overworld map is the skulls and the audio logs. I got everything else unlocked.
Yeah, I guess I'll continue that tradition. I have been feverishly, whatever you want to call it.
Feverishly.
I have been looking to see what I'm going to play on PlayStation next, and I think that I have that answer, which we'll talk about, I guess, in more depth a little bit later. But essentially, Chris and I are trying to dance around with how quickly, with his work schedule and mine, that we'll be able to play It Takes Two. Yeah. Something we've been talking about off and on for like a month, well over a month, I guess, actually, at this point. So we'll see about that. But that definitely is the next thing I can see myself playing on PlayStation. But really, I played a bunch of Halo as well. The week came around on Tuesday and restarted, and I got the weekly ultimate knocked out in 2 days, which was kind of nice because I didn't feel like I needed to worry about playing multiplayer as much for challenge sake. But
I hate Twitter.
Yeah, that was weird.
Look, it's literally just Dark Souls.
Anyway, it was kind of nice because I got that knocked out and I didn't feel this need to play every day to try and get that done, which I guess shows that despite the bad progression, or at least it's way better than it was, but still progression that needs work, that they've done something to get a hook in me to be like, hey, you should try and complete all the weekly challenges. But it was kind of fun because I think the problem that Chris and I have talked about a bunch is that when you have games with challenges, and this is the first one I've ever done that has something like this, that are tied to your progression, then there's this feeling of like not wanting to play the objective because you're trying so hard to knock these challenges out as quick as you can. But since I got them knocked out in like literally 2 days, the rest of the week, if I got on and played with anyone, I got to like just focus directly on whatever the objective of the game was. Mm-hmm. And it was fun for an entirely different reason. So the challenges are fun because they make you play the game in a different way. But then because you get so used to playing the game in multiple different ways, when you don't have those to contend with and you're just playing the objective, it's fun in its own way. So that was cool. And I, of course, have played, I'd say probably like 6 hours of the campaign, maybe 5, or I guess of Halo's thing, you know, and when you have the open world to account for, time played doesn't really account to what you've completed just because of the nature of that type of game. But yeah, Chris, I'm curious to see what you do once you get more into it. Cause I know that, for you on Halo, you got through the first 2 missions, right?
Yeah.
You got into the open world and then kind of had to quit. Yeah. Yep. The first 2 missions are awesome.
It is. I just love this. I just think Chief is so funny. He's just so funny. I love that.
And the more moments you can get him, I noticed that they give him a lot more meaningful dialogue when they push him into areas that aren't part of the open world. Yeah. So there's a handful of missions that will have you go into instance areas that are you load into. I mean, it's quick loading, but you load into, and it's separate from the open world. And I find that those are my favorite parts of the game because it's weird that it's like the open world is a nice addition. I mean, it's not bad, but I find that the game is at its best when it's still playing mostly like an original Halo game, where it's like, hey, we're going to really you'd be strict on what you can do and where you can go within this. And I think that matters because the best story pacing is when you have a linear setup and you're not trying to fight that with letting people just do what they want when they want. And then you have little moments of do what you want when you want that aren't as important, but they world build. Like, oh, here's the hunters who are seeking me out. And here's these high value targets that benefit me from doing. They're not like major storytelling points, but they help sell the world.
I'll say that this is the best Halo campaign I think there's ever been. Tied up with Halo 1 and 2. It's a return to form. Like there's a specific part of this game like where it feels just like Halo 1.
Yeah, I think the exploration of the world is good, but it's weird because I think I agree with you, but I don't necessarily know that I agree with you because of the fact that, let me say this, I don't think the open world is the biggest identifier of that.
No, it's not. That's the crazy part. It's the environment that's in the ring that you go through. It's just like, this is very reminiscent of the first time you went in a Halo in Halo 1. It's the same architecture. It's the exact same layout. It just looks new.
Well, and I think what else is cool is that the open world does do this thing where you feel like what you're in is actually part of something, because the other games feel like a series of events that are happening, but they're just stringed together. Like, here's this, and then we've moved you, and here you are. And the games would occasionally try and sell you on it by being like, hey, we're going to put you on the back of a vehicle and move you through, and you're going to shoot people, but it's really scripted. And there is something that's cool about being able to be like, hey, there's something you need to go check out at this dig site. And then you just go to the dig site, and then you start doing stuff, and eventually you're making your way into the dig site in what feels way more linear as you continue to get down into it before you eventually load into a separate instance where you're not part of the open world, and it is pretty much at that point a linear level. It's kind of what I wonder, like, if we ever do get another Uncharted, we kind of saw this a little bit in the Lost Legacy. But if we ever do get another Uncharted, I would imagine that they're going to try and strike this balance too, to where it's like you just have an open world and there's interesting things for you to go check out, and you start to problem solve in your own way and in your own order. Again, we saw this at a very low, like a smaller scale in the Lost Legacy, but I think Halo shows how traditionally linear games can adopt an open world without sacrificing what made their linear stories good. And that's probably one of the most interesting things about Halo Infinite, except for, like Saul said, it being just a good campaign.
Yeah,
like it's just a strong return to form for a series that I've often wavered on, because I think almost every other Halo game I'm more or less disinterested in. I don't think that means they're bad, but 5, I thought Reach was this weird mix of, like, I liked it.
From a story, Reach was cool. That's the only thing good about Reach.
Yes, exactly. I like the story, but the campaign itself wasn't really that fun. ODST, fantastic. I actually think 3 is not that great of a game, but 3 campaign-wise.
I'll have to replay 3 as an adult, but I remember I played 3 a lot. I got all the achievements in 3. That's how you got the samurai armor. Mm-hmm. And it's forgettable. But then again, I haven't literally played it in, get this, 14 years since it's been out.
Oh my God. Yeah. I haven't played it since then either, actually.
Yeah.
We're going to move off of Halo after this, but in general, Blake was talking about replaying all the Halo games. And Chris, I think he may have mentioned that you were talking about it too.
I'm halfway through Reach.
They're all co-opable up to 4 players, right?
No.
Halo 2
is 2. Yeah. I think Halo 2 is 2 players. Halo 3 is 4. Halo 1 is 2.
Did they not adjust that whenever they made the anniversary editions?
I don't think they could. I'd actually be curious as to if that's something they could fix.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
From a design standpoint, maybe.
Or either way, I think I might do the same, because and I might play Halo 5 again to try and understand, because it's weird. Halo 5 is very forgettable. And that's the worst thing about it. But with all that said, I did finally play my Switch a little bit more, and I've been doing this passive thing where, like, the entirety of me enjoying Pokemon is intrinsically tied to my enjoyment of Dexter at the moment, to where I don't think Pokemon's very fun to me if I'm not, like, they're so tied together that I want to be watching Dexter while I'm playing it, because Dexter is the actual entertaining thing, and then Pokemon is just the filling my hands with something to do while I'm watching something more interesting. But that's not entirely unlike most Pokemon games anyway. The real fun of Pokemon games happens in-game. So I'm trying to work my way through the story so I can get to end-game to see if I like it more. And that's where we are right now.
You're going to go do the beauty contests?
Yeah. The most interesting part of Pokemon. Let's go do beauty contests.
No, I'm dead serious. Like, that was my favorite part of those games.
I never played
the museum and everything.
Yeah, I never played the original Diamond, Platinum, Pearl.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it was that one. Was it that one, or I think it's Diamond,
I thought
Pearl
beauty contests were part of Oros, because I remember that.
It might be, yeah. So
then you had to go through, and you had like the thing, like, here's the cool section, and this move has so many cool points.
Yep.
Yeah,
it was so much.
That's
fun.
Oros. Oh, that's originally Ruby, Sapphire, and then also in the Omega Ruby. And actually, I did that too.
It's so good.
Yeah. It's like, wow, your Charmander's so cool.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I know he is. Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
and you give them berries to help them go towards certain. It kind of reminded me of the Sonic, which I don't know if you've ever done, but Sonic Adventure.
Yes, I've done
both
it.
1 and 2 had the Chow Garden things where you could feed them certain things.
Chow Gardens. Are you kidding?
The
the Devil Chow and the Angel Chow. Easy.
Oh yeah, dude.
Easy stuff.
My favorite part, it was actually I think it was the first game, wasn't it? Where you could, which one was it where as you fed the chows, I think it might have been the second one, where you fed the chows, the animals, they would start to, if you fed them enough of that animal, they would start to take on their characteristics.
Yeah, you'd get like the bunny ears or whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or like the tiger tail or tiger feet and stuff like that. Yeah, that was awesome. Man, those games are so good. Oh. Which is, we were making jokes the entire time, and we'll talk about that a little bit later about the hoping that we get Sonic Adventure 3 at the Game Awards. It's not what we got, but that's okay. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Moving on, though, I guess at this point, we're going to go ahead and start shifting over into the news. And, of course, I think the best thing we can say is the big news piece for this week is the Game Awards. But we're going to kind of save that as part of Community's Take and final topic because Chris, I think, aptly said it before we started recording. In many ways, the Game Awards is the news, for better or worse. I mean, however you feel about the Game Awards, they are the thing that takes up whatever week they're involved with. That's the news, much like E3. There's no point in really putting any other news out. That's not part of that. But before we get completely into the news, I want to remind everyone that this show is brought to you by all of you who come to our Patreon over at patreon.com/Nartech and give as little as $1 per month. You guys are awesome. You'll help cover all the costs of the show, and we appreciate it. If you want to be part of that group and allow us to do more and have more of a back end to do things, again, head over to patreon.com/Nartech and give as little as $1 per month, or at least consider it. And we are very appreciative to all of those who do so. If you can't do that, then it would be awesome if you feel the need or if you feel so obliged to go onto the podcast service and give us a review to let other people know if we're worth their time. Or if you're on video on YouTube, then like and subscribe and share the video with other people. But enough of that. Let's move into the news. The first thing is Sony announced that owners of Uncharted 4 or Uncharted The Lost Legacy's PS4 versions, either digitally or physically, would be able to upgrade either game to the entire Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection for $9.99. Following this announcement, Sony pulled digital versions of both games from the PS Store, presumably to keep people from being able to get in the door for $20 total, rather than the $50 price tag for the collection if they didn't already own either of these games. Physical versions are still a workaround for this, so check out your Best Buys, your Targets, your Walmarts, and see if you're wanting to get into the door a lot cheaper. They have $9.99 physical versions of Uncharted 4, which is all you would need to get that. This is interesting because I think this is actually a great upgrade path, but I'm not surprised that Sony had to be cheeky and be like, it's a cool upgrade path so we can make people happy, but we're also going to pull. But I will say I'm a little surprised that they pulled those versions of the game as opposed to just increasing their price. At that point, I'm surprised they didn't go, hey, we'll still keep it on there so that if you're a digital person and you haven't played Uncharted 4, here you are, you can play Uncharted 4. But you know what I didn't think about? How does that impact the PlayStation 5 PS Plus collection? Because if I'm not mistaken, Uncharted 4 was part of the PS Plus collection. Well, I know you can't upgrade it. But when they pulled the digital version, did that pull the game from the PS Plus collection?
Let's find out.
That's a good question. But it's interesting to see. I mean, I've seen people be like, Sony's in the wrong for doing this. I don't really blame them because this is an upgrade path for people who already had it. That doesn't mean that they should keep a cheap option for people who didn't already have it to come in and suddenly benefit from it. So you're it's a rock and a hard place situation. I think Sony probably did the right move here, except for I think it would have been better to just go to Uncharted 4 and be like, hey, Uncharted 4 is $40, and if you buy it, then you can upgrade to the collection for $10, and we're overall getting the same $50 as if you bought the collection. That's probably how I would have navigated that. Just go Nintendo. Be like, yeah, our game's full price again. 40 was never full price, but
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. But yeah, Chris, as you do some detective work on that, let us know. I'm going to go ahead to the next thing. Sony have announced that they are ending the program where Sony Rewards account holders can earn points per dollar spent by purchasing on the PS Store. Starting January 1st, 2022, that will only be available to users who do so using a Sony or PlayStation credit card. I do that, so this doesn't really benefit. This doesn't change anything for me. But the prevalent conversation here, and I think it ties back to something I've said many times, is that Sony's really interesting in the fact that they will often be the first people to do a program or among the first people to do it and then they just kind of often botch it and then end up killing it down to a point where they're just not doing anymore. I've seen so many people kind of look at this and be like, I wish Sony would, instead of killing off their rewards, I wish they would evolve their reward system rather, to be like Xbox's. And I'm not really big into the Xbox one, but it's all tied into like Bing and getting achievements and trophies. And these are things, or achievements, but we've seen Sony do that before, where if you got trophies, you got information, you got points towards your reward account. And then they pulled that, and then Microsoft were like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll use that in ours." Yeah. But Sony doesn't have a search engine, so I guess quick question. Not that y'all care, because this is not like a huge point for really anybody at this point. But ideally, if you had like a quick thing, what would either of you, or if you just really don't care, you can answer that. What would either of you want to see out of like a revamped idea of like, hey, let's really make a PlayStation rewards thing, not Sony rewards, just PlayStation rewards, like. Would y'all want to see something mirrored more like what Xbox does, or do you have bigger aspirations in mind, Saul? That you,
I don't care solely for the fact that the reward, like proprietary reward systems like this, don't matter to me, because I have my Amex card does rewards, but it doesn't lock me to a specific service, and it's typically better rewards than what proprietary services offer, because I'm not locked to those certain services.
Yeah, sure.
So it's just one of those things of like, I could get a free PlayStation game if I want to, or I could get free, body wash or something at the store. Like, it doesn't really bother me.
So your goal is to move it off from being something else and just tell people who are upset about this, hey, instead of doing that, just find your reward system elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, if you have good enough credit to get a PlayStation credit card, you have good enough credit to get other reward credit cards that are more general.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I use the PlayStation card just because I'm not big on applying for more and more credit cards, and I've just had that one. It's like my first real big credit card, and I do benefit a lot from it because, of course, I buy that way, to the point where, like I've said multiple times, I haven't bought a game that me and Chris have game shared. I haven't physically put cash out for a game, and I can't remember the last time if it wasn't a collector's edition. Yeah. But to that end, I've thought often, because I know Saul's Amex card, it's like, that is a pretty good reward system. But do I really want to apply for a new credit card? Because that hits your credit if you don't already have one.
It doesn't hit your credit too hard. But I only use 2 credit cards. I use that one and I use Amazon. Just because if I buy something on Amazon, I use that. Well. Yeah, and then I get that reward system there is absolutely crazy. Like, I don't see how they make money on that.
Well, it's Amazon. They don't really have to worry about that.
That's true.
All right, Chris, do you have anything that you'd want out of it, or you kind of like seek elsewhere?
Yeah, not a credit card. Like, if I was going to want a Sony rewards thing, it would be for trophies and games. And at that point, it wouldn't be retroactive. So I don't even care at that point. You know what I mean?
Like, so you would want a reward system that comes and goes, man, dude, you've got like 100 platinums. Here's a wad of points.
Yeah, I mean,
let me ask you this.
Because
let me ask you this: if they came out and they said that you would get $100 for every platinum you have, or you will get, but not retroactively, would you be irritated or would you be hyped?
Irritated.
So you wouldn't look at that as a new chance to start a new PS Plus profile and just make money?
No.
Okay.
No, because I already did this.
To be fair, I'm in the same boat with you. That's one reason I don't trophy hunt anymore, because I'm like, I'm not doing this again, kind of thing. Or
what's worse is that Chris literally lost his old account, and he has spent many of his years trying to re-platinum games he already platinumed.
Yep.
I don't have it in me. I'm like Saul. I like trophy hunting and it's fun, but I'll tell you right now, if I lost my Mortal Shell Platinum because my account went poof, there's no way I'm doing that again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm more likely to do it again on the PS5 version as a separate platinum just because I enjoy the game than I am to, out of spite, be like, I lost it, but I had it. I will get it on PS4 again. Not happening.
The stuff that really, the one that really gets me is I had a Bad Company 2 on that old account. And that was a really good one. That one, Modern Warfare 2, and which I did buy myself. I'm assuming,
did Bad Company have online trophies?
Oh, yeah. I boosted the hell out of those.
So you genuinely can't get it anymore, right?
Yep. It's impossible to get.
RIP, bro.
Unless those private server guys bring back Bad Company 2, then maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
But even then, I remember boosting those, not doing it again.
It's too soon.
I also did check. I had to log into my PS5. You can get Uncharted 4 in the PS Plus collection, but it now says exclusive to PlayStation Plus.
To the PS Plus collection.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, the upside is that Sony's online network is robust enough to take it away from everywhere except for the PS Plus collection. Look at them getting fair. Mildly better technology. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next thing. I think reward systems are just an interesting thing across the board, and so many people want things, but Sony doesn't have as many avenues to make it a reality like Xbox does. But I kind of agree with you, Chris. I don't really get why they ever took away the, hey, as you earn trophies, you earn points. I mean, you're literally just rewarding people for playing your games, and that would make, if someone's sitting here going, I like that game on Xbox or PlayStation, but if I play on PlayStation I can get more money on PlayStation, you have a higher chance of getting people to want to default to PlayStation if they know they get rewards out of earning.
It doesn't even have to be that much. Give me like $1, you know, like I don't care. It's just like, it's the same reason I like growing my numbers. That's the whole point of everything I do. Just kind of depressing.
It's what it used to be. 10 platinums was $10 in PSN credit,
right?
And you're earning it towards it's not like they're giving you $10 to spend anywhere. So, but exactly. Oh well, we'll see if Sony ever comes back around on that. I think that the real reality is that while there are people that do care, I think the majority of people just don't, and that's really what it is. All right, next thing up. After being absent from the Game Awards, the newly reformed Telltale Games has come out to promise that they will be dropping new info in regard to The Wolf Among Us 2 soon, specifically in an upcoming issue of Game Informer magazine. The information is not exclusively about The Wolf Among Us 2, but also about working on a new engine, or in a new engine since coming back, and rebuilding Telltale as a new studio with the legacy of an old studio, and more. I'm excited for The Wolf Among Us 2. I don't necessarily know if the next info drop I need is really from a Game Informer magazine. I would have preferred a trailer, but you know, here we are. I think it's interesting to see. Chris.
Yes.
Telltale, Wolf Among Us. What's your thoughts?
Wolf Among Us is great. I really like that game. I just hope they pull it off. You know, I don't know how many people are still there from Telltale, or if this is one of those. What's the ship? Do you know what I'm talking about? The ship of Theseus, I think it is. Where it's like at a certain point you've replaced it. You've replaced every piece, that it's not the same ship anymore. You know? I don't know.
Sure. It's like the idea of people talking about, you know, ever so often, eventually, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but like your body is essentially a new body because it's all your cells. All your cells have shed and been replaced by new cells. It's an interesting idea, but this kind of brings up that thing of, you know, often when people talk about the Order since Ready at Dawn got bought, there's this idea of like, who do you give the Order to, and can it be as good if you give it to someone who wasn't the original creator? And there's always a weird balance because oftentimes the answer is yes, you know. So the real question here is, does this team need anybody who was involved with The Wolf Among Us 1 to really still make a genuinely great game? The answer is no, but is everyone's belief that it will be a great game without having to play it first be higher if you can tell me that, hey, the writer for the first Wolf Among Us is involved in this one? Yeah, I mean, it's a point of comfort because it's like something I know is there even if the rest is new. We'll see how it ends up going. I mean, I think Telltale have not, as far as I'm aware, released a game at all that wasn't just a repackaging of an old Telltale game since they've come back.
Yeah, they finished Walking Dead. So
well, yeah, but that was like
it's new episodes. So yeah, new games.
Yeah, true, but within a built-in system and part of games that were already gone. But fair point. I mean, it's new content, but we haven't seen anything that's like new engine or anything like that. You get what I'm saying? Like we've not seen the mission statement of the new Telltale yet, because it was more like, hey, we got to pick up where the old one left off so that we can wrap it up and then go forward. But
I still need to play that because I like The Walking Dead. But
the final chapter or whatever it's called. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Let's see. Next thing up, announced during the Game Awards, the original Battle Royale, as they call it, is going free to play. Starting January 12th, PUBG will be free for all players. Also, PUBG Battlegrounds is the worst name in the world because it's Player Unknown Battlegrounds. And I've said this a million times, but it's just a bad name.
It's not called. Isn't it just called Player Unknown Battlegrounds? It's not called PUBG Battlegrounds.
No, they renamed the game PUBG Battlegrounds.
Oh, okay. Then that's stupid. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can find the wiki for it. But yeah, it's just very odd. I don't know why they chose to do that. Here we are. Games, Player Unknown Battlegrounds. I wonder if I can find that. Because it happened a while back, and I just thought it was a very odd choice. Okay, PUBG Battlegrounds, or PUBG, previously known as PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, is an online multiplayer. Yeah, so they renamed it PUBG Battlegrounds.
Yeah, fair. I don't know. I've made this joke a couple times, but I think it's really funny that they put the date the game should have gone free to play in the trailer, which was 5 years ago.
Yeah. Basically, I'm. It's one of those things where most people, including your brother, Seth, walked in. He's like, I thought that was already free to play. Nope.
Well, they're giving it away. Like, you can get it on PS Plus. Like, I don't know. The second Fortnite was free to play, they should have just dropped the price. I don't understand why they kept charging $30.
Or at the very least, the second that Fortnite was obviously a huge success, for more than just a handful of months.
When it started eating their lunch. Yeah,
the year one of Fortnite, like once the first year hit and they realized that it wasn't going anywhere, it should have been like, all right, guys, we got to pivot. But instead, here we are 4 years later.
Yeah, 5 years.
5, whatever. So it's rough, but that's where we are.
Insane move.
Next thing up, Sony have announced the acquisition of Valkyrie Entertainment, developer of 2015's Guns Up, and a support studio that has assisted on many games, including 2018's God of War, the Forza Motorsport series, and more recently, Halo Infinite. The acquisition, according to Harman Holst, is to act as a support studio who will, quote, be making invaluable contributions to key PlayStation Studios franchises, end quote. Valkyrie marks their 5th acquisition this year, and if I was a betting man, I'd say that 2022 is going to hold more. Yeah. It seems like we're in this point where it's just Microsoft and Sony. I mean, and there's other companies, but Microsoft and Sony really batting for like who's going to acquire who first. We're in the age of acquisitions because presumably games are moving more and more to a point where there is a potential chance that the console isn't the main focus anymore. Even if they will always be around. And so it's going to become a thing of like which place has which games. And the place that has the most games and the biggest names are going to be the ones, kind of like you were talking about last week, Saul, with the idea of like multiple streaming services, where it's like eventually it will get to the point where all the money is only really going to be made off of who's got the better service. So if PlayStation moves from being less console oriented and more, hey, you're going to buy games off of the PlayStation Store because we curate and this is our list of games that we either think are good and have helped fund or that we outright own, that's going to be where the money's at. But it's interesting. Chris, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't know. It's like a support studios are important. I'm glad they have their own in-house ones so we don't have to pay Crystal Dynamics to do it.
Well, this is a second support studio realistically this year because Nix's in many ways is just a support studio, but I guess they're more a port studio, but it's so that you can take the porting work off of the main studio and just give it to someone else who's still in-house. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to a point where support studios are in the majority of acquisitions for the next few months, because it's like all these places that do great support work, why not fold them under our wing so that every studio can kind of lean on them and they can be involved with almost every game we have so that games can be iterated on quicker. And then hopefully all of our primary studios that actually have the names that people recognize, like Naughty Dog or Insomniac or Sucker Punch, we can have them coming out with games more often. I think we're at a point where the industry needs to catch up to Insomniac, where you just every 2 years you have at least one game, right?
Yeah.
Because we're going to a point where like Naughty Dog doesn't have a game for like 4 to 5 years at a time. And it would be ideal for Sony if they can have, hey, new Naughty Dog game every 2 to 3 years,
At least, yeah. Just grow your studios.
Oh, man. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Next thing up, and I know Saul had hot takes on this, which I think I'm kind of in line with. PS5 is finally getting its...
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Saul has hot takes on Dane DeHaan.
Garbage actor.
Anyway, PS5 is finally getting its first third-party controller in the way of Scuff's Reflex, Reflex Pro, and Reflex FPS controllers. The Reflex and Reflex Pro keep the DualSense's adaptive triggers, but the Reflex FPS swaps the adaptive triggers for instant triggers that react with a tap, meant to be in line with like a mouse click. The controllers are available in a handful of colors at launch, and with swappable rings around the thumbsticks and the thumbsticks themselves to accent those colors, but the price of entry is not cheap. The lowest tier model, the Reflex starts at $199. The Reflex Pro comes in at $229, and the FPS comes in at $259. I think this is cool because more options are always cool. But what are these prices?
I knew the prices were going to be up there.
I knew they were too, because I'll tell you right now, this right here is a Scuff controller. And I love it, and it's cool, but it costs a lot of money. And this was before Scuff was owned by Corsair. This was before
Patreon too, wasn't it?
Yes. This is fully out of my pocket just because I thought it would be an interesting thing. And I played with it quite a bit before I finally was like, yeah, I'm just going to let it be the showpiece because I think it's a cool looking controller. But I think even this one was like 140, 150 maybe. And that was before Scuff got bought out by Corsair, which arguably their quality is better now because they have a lot higher backing, and Corsair does make great products. But man, that's way too much money. The bigger thing that's kind of interesting here is that when Scuff were completely by themselves, it made sense that they just bought PlayStation controllers and then reused most aspects of the controller.
Yeah.
Like what this is literally a DualShock 4 they just bought and then molded new things. So the internals are all DualShock, but then you have like a custom faceplate to account for their custom housings. You have the back that they take off and do all these things for so they can put paddles and stuff on. But in reality, it's just a DualShock 4. And seemingly with this, these new ones are just DualSenses that they are modifying a little bit, and you're paying over twice the cost of a DualShock 4. How are they getting away with that from a legal standpoint, though, now that they're actually owned and backed by like a legit company, Corsair?
I don't know. Partnered with Sony. But I would actually argue that these prices are not that insane. This is in line with the series, the Elite Series controllers.
They are, and I'll give you that. Contextually, they may not be insane, but I think that even the Elite Series controllers are quite expensive. And having not had one, you have the best experience in that because you literally have one. But having not had one, the amount of times I hear people talk about the quality of them and how often that they have issues or break. Thankfully, it seems like I don't think you've had any major issues out of yours.
Nope.
But
mine's been great.
For a lot of people, at least vocal people on the internet, it seems like the cost versus the actual quality of the controller is a little odd. And that's probably the same here. Because like, the Switch stick drift issue that people talk about, all controllers deal with it. I think the Switch gets hit harder because of the fact that they're on the Switch Lite built into the system. And then on the Switch normal, they're still part of the system, and you can't ultimately use the system without your Joy-Cons on the go So people hit it a lot harder, but in a lot of the ways, the actual analog underneath, not the stick, but the actual analog device that is used is the same in the PlayStation. It's the same in the Xbox. It's the same in everything, probably including your Elite controller. So it's like you're paying $200 for an Elite controller that still has the same 39-cent analog stick underneath it, or whatever you want to call it. It's probably not 39 cents, but you know what I mean, $8 or whatever it is.
I don't know. The Elite controller is hefty, but I think with these, you're paying for the extra stuff. I don't feel like you're paying for durability, because I don't think any of these controllers last any longer than, or any less time than like the regular DualSense,
the normal controller.
You're paying for the back buttons. You're paying for, at least in the case of the Elite controller, you're paying to take the joysticks out and replace them, and the D-pad and the back things and the weight and the fact that I can put feather triggers
as well?
I have the trigger stops and stuff. So like you're paying for all of that. And while yes, it would be nice if your $200 controller lasted longer than your DualSense, you're still paying for a modified DualSense. You know what I mean? So I think you're getting this. I personally, at least in my experience with the Elite, especially, you're still getting the same amount of like lifespan on a controller. It's just this is a more advanced controller. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it sure does. And something that even, it's easy to see and go, well, that's way too much money, but then not think about is that the benefit that Joy-Con, like normal Joy-Cons, normal DualShocks and all that have, is that those controllers are produced in mass because the market for them is much higher than the market for a pro controller. So the market for a pro controller means that they can't be made in such a high quantity, and that means that the cost per build goes up. And so that price is being offset by the fact that they're not going to take that on the chin and be like, well, we wanted to release a pro controller, so to keep it competitive, we're going to absorb the $20 cost difference to make the controller or whatever that dollar amount actually is. Yeah, so I mean, I'm with you, but I think much like Saul, it's just you still see it, and it's like it's this idea that like let's just call it $200 is half the price of a digital PS5 for just the controller. Now, but you're paying for something that's niche and that you want. The system is built for a large audience. This controller is built for a very small one.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm not even saying I don't think you should buy it. So like,
yeah, because you didn't buy yours, right? It was a Christmas present or something, birthday present.
Yeah, I bought my brother one for Christmas, and then the next Christmas he bought me one, and I love it. But like, I'm glad I didn't pay for it for myself. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, I will say my brother's Elite controller is broken, so. Whatever.
But if it was a year later, he probably had the Gen 1 Elite and you got the Gen 2, right?
No, I got him the Series S as it came out. Or the Series 2. It was 2 years ago.
Series 2 as it came out?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I always heard that it's whatever the price is for the Elite controller plus a $20 Best Buy warranty. Because like you could just take it back up there and then they'll give you a brand new one.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
And I hear that's worth it.
Yeah, it is.
Arguably, that might even be worth it on a normal controller.
Or a Switch.
Or Switch.
Really, it's worth it on anything, because I had headphones that I did that with, and the woman was like, it was like a 1 year warranty, and he was like, at day 364, come back, get a new ones, and then the warranty refreshes. And she was telling me that like, if we run out of this model, you just get the new model. So you'll just continue getting free headphones for the rest of your life, basically.
For $20.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so you're saying that you don't have to pay the $14 again. You just have to swap the product.
Yeah, you just swap the product, and then it
by
resets.
Day 364, and it will reset that 1 year. That's pretty wild. That seems like gaming the system.
I don't see how that's profitable for Frito-Lay.
Anyway, next thing up is, and also it's profitable for Frito-Lay because they don't have to worry about all the people who eat Doritos and then touch their controller, because now the controller can be fixed, so people won't hesitate to buy more Doritos. You know what I mean?
Yep. God, I love
Pepsi Cola's even got a little bit in here because Mountain Dew is just on the docket again. You know what I mean? You don't got to worry about spilling a little Mountain Dew in your controller because it's covered.
You can drink Mountain Dew out of the controller now.
And then go swap it for a new one.
Exactly. Hey, my cup is broken. I need a new cup.
Oh boy, terrible. Last thing on the news before we get into the community's take and then kind of the roundup is the after months of silence. What did I say?
What? No.
You said the news.
I was just joking that you said we're going to wrap up the news and then get into the news on the TGAs. That was just...
Fair enough. After months of silence, a small little update through the PS5 UI's news card system states that Blue Box Game Studios are ready to show more of Abandon, teasing a Q1 2022 release for what they are calling, quote, the prologue chapter. They conclude the update by saying a specific date will be announced shortly, so stay tuned if you care. The main thing that's interesting about this, and I know this is technically part of the Game Awards, but I think that there was this moment where everyone felt mildly validated if they were Team Believe in the Game Awards when Jeff Keighley showed off the new game from the original Silent Hill creator, because what happens is he's like a prominent Japanese developer, and you're like, okay, and he's like, I'm proud to announce this. Like, this sounds a lot like how he talks about Kojima, and then he's like, the first thing on screen is in 1999 they released Silent Hills, and you're like, no way, and then it just ends up being a new game from someone else. But I think I know me and Saul in that moment were like, what? And then it was. We got the wool pulled over our eyes. But it's funny that this is coming back out because we're at least 3 months of silence, if not a little bit longer, from Blue Box, right?
About that, yeah.
I think like 2 months. Yeah. I don't think it's been quite 3.
Well, I know that, they went through a bunch of stuff, and then it was like, hey, we're going to show this video that we released on Twitter, and then we're going to release it in the app. And here we are back again. I think what's interesting about this is how under the radar they tried making this announcement. So it's like, for anybody that still has the abandoned app downloaded, which I actually do, and on the off chance that you happen to pay attention to the news card when you hit the PS button on PS5, you have a little chance of seeing, hey, from the abandoned app, here's an update. This is probably smart because, as I think most people are leaning toward, this has nothing to do with Kojima at this point. Who knows? We could still be wrong or right, or who knows. But if you want to try and be able to still talk about your game without being just dunked on by the media, your best bet is to try and be as low profile with this as you can until you actually have something to show. So this is probably the right move. But the bigger question is, how many people still have the abandoned app on their PlayStation? How many people have just been too lazy to delete it? Or have held out hope that it really is going to be something of value? And how likely are they actually to return to this, even if they still had that app on there? Like, is it just a reminder of like how let down this entire situation made a lot of people, even if they built it up in their own head? Yes. It's interesting.
By the way, the teaser happened in August 10th, so it is 4 months.
So we
almost
are
exactly
past 3. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Whew. I just checked.
Yeah, that's rough.
Which kind of blew me away. I was like, August, this has to be the wrong trailer. And then it was Norman Reedus walking across a wooden floor, and I was like, oh no, August 10th.
Norman Reedus, you say?
It's Silent Hills, baby.
Team Believe.
I'm just saying, Kojima had a blue thing on his shirt.
Oh, look at that.
I'm just saying, blue for Blue Box.
Well,
red
while we're talking
I'm going to kill
about
myself.
This,
we keep talking about this.
As we keep digging into the fun, the fact that Saul didn't believe me, but I don't know if he went back and watched it, but it was 100%. So I was like, no, he didn't. Guillermo del Toro, whenever he was showing off the trailer for that movie, had that joke of like, I'm a big, and then he was talking about the nominations. He was like, I'm a big fan of when game designers have great vision or whatever. And then he goes, a game series I always thought just really excelled in design was Silent Hills. They should make another one of those.
Yeah,
I did not believe you. I was in disbelief that was even said to begin with.
I know. I knew what you kind of meant, but it was just funny because it was so. It was like, I'm going to slide this in and not really give it like, he didn't make a huge deal out of it. He kept going and didn't like pause on it or anything. But
see, that to me was like a clear indication that like that Gamatsu or leak about Kojima doing Silent Hills is 100% true. That was like, that to me was like Kojima is saying, I'm going to be here next year to show my game. And then the next dude that he introduces is Guillermo del Toro, who's like, yeah, I'd really like if a visionary dude would go ahead and make one of those Silent Hill games again. Like that was, to me, was like, okay, like this is like clearly a confirmation. Are we kidding?
Yeah. Now, that's not confirmation that Blue Box is the studio doing that.
Who cares about Blue Box Studio anymore?
But exactly.
Who cares?
I still just, the human side of me, I hope that Blue Box rebounds from this and puts out a decent game that does well for them and lets them continue to make games. That's where I'm at. But
I don't want to see anyone fail, but I kind of don't mind if I never hear about them again.
Well, yeah, at the same time, right? I mean, I don't want them to fail when it is an objectively solid game. If it is an objectively solid game. That was
always the thing about the Blue Box thing is they started all of this, but I thought the abandoned, like that first reveal trailer, like it looked interesting. I like that setting of like the woods and like the creepy kind of, I guess, survival horror, but it's not a survival horror game aspect of it. Like that all seemed cool. And then they put their foot in their mouth with, ooh, guess what the game is? Starts with an S and an H. What idiots.
Oh, terrible. All right, let's see. We're going to go ahead and jump into the community's take, which we kind of talked about, how do you feel about the Game Awards in general? And then as a result of when the timing came, how did you feel about the Game Awards as it actually happened? And surprisingly, not as much response on this as I would have expected. But I think that there's a key factor in there from a couple of these answers that's going to tell us exactly why that is the take. And it's specifically the problem that I see that, as we said, the Game Awards is too long.
Yep.
And the Game Awards is so American focused in terms of timing, because of course it happens here, that not only is it long, we're going to go into Rude Cold's here. Rude Cold, he's over in the UK, and he says, it's the last time I wake up at 1 a.m. for any awards show. Really wasn't worth it. Way too long and front loaded with good announcements, but then gets overloaded with advertisements. Was hoping for at least one new big announcement from either PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo, and they didn't deliver at all. Now, kind of breaking that down, I do think it's interesting that not only do the Game Awards start when they start, you do have this thing where no matter what, award shows or even any kind of gaming big keynote like this has to balance what's the ideal time to where the majority of people feel like they can get in and watch this live, because live numbers are important, clearly, because almost every year except this year, we normally see Jeff come out and be like, last year there was this many million people streaming this at once, and it was this much over the previous year. So it's something that's important. But it's really hard to wake up at 1 a.m. and then stay up for 3.5 hours for something that doesn't have 3.5 hours of actual entertainment value or information. And I think that's a big thing. And part of the reason I can say that, and actually what he says here is front loaded with good announcements. And I think he's right, because the thing is like our day that we had here is that Saul, Andrew, Seth, little Seth all came over. Here we got pizza. We were hanging out.
I left the pizza here, by the way.
You did, and it's in my fridge.
I forgot. I was so angry that I had an extra pizza, and I was like, I woke up. I was like, what was I was going to eat something today? The pizza. I left it at Brett's house because I put it in here, and then somebody moved it. I don't know where they moved
Seth
it to.
Moved it. And actually, he moved it onto the white table in there. The problem is, I didn't even see it until yesterday. I'm not joking. I told you I've barely been home.
That pizza.
Yeah, I put it in the fridge, but I was like, it's probably a gone pizza at this point. But I don't want to throw something away that wasn't mine. Regardless, point being, we sat down, and originally we intended to watch the Game Awards while playing Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever. And we were going to do it here in the studio and have the little confidence monitor we have over here that we see Chris on over here to the side of us. Well, the Game Awards started with enough of a bang to honestly keep us on the couch, and it was able to keep threading us along far enough to where we just kind of stayed on the couch for about an hour. But then it started getting worse, and then Saul was like, I just want to, since Seth was late, I want to show him this cool thing that happened earlier, because what's happening now is not cool.
Yeah, it was the Imagine Dragons concert or something.
It was, I think it was the little musical sing-along where we thought it was the Lalafell.
Oh, yeah. That's when we decided to move into here.
The Imagine Dragons, I think, is when we decided to fully move into here. But, yeah, it's kind of that idea of, like, it held our attention, and then the rest of the show just ended up being us playing Magic while something was happening off to the side.
Yeah.
And I never felt like we missed anything by moving in here and taking focus off of it. Chris, did you get to watch it in real time?
I did.
Or were you more, like, catching up? Oh, you did. Nice.
Well, I started watching it late because I was at work. But I ended up, by the time it ended, I was caught up and live. So
cool.
For most of it, I was skipping.
Do you kind of agree with that? From like, so did you get to kind of watch it in order, or did you recap?
I watched it in order. It was just like when there were ads or something, I could just skip.
You could skip through?
Yeah. Every time they did that really crappy Facebook stuff, I was like, I don't care about this. Move on. But I watched the vast majority of it
cool.
live.
So do you feel like you agree with that statement that it was front loaded well and then just kind of fizzled out slowly? But
yeah, it was completely unbalanced. Like, I've made this point, to you guys, I think privately, but like, how do you end your reveal show? Because that's what this is. This is a reveal show and an advertisement show with a couple of awards.
Wrapped up in a lie of being an award show. Yeah,
exactly. But how do you end that with quite literally an ad? How is your big reveal an advertisement for a movie? How is that what you end on? Like, you can say like, oh, it's the cool Unreal 5 demo. I want to see the new graphics. But I know I'm a trophy guy, but there are no trophies for this game. right? Which means that the platform holders do not consider it a video game. And that's what you're ending your video game show on?
Okay, it's weird because I think the reason that I agree with you is that what they actually ended on didn't show anything of value. Now, the interesting thing is actually downloading and loading up the Unreal 5 Matrix Awakens or whatever thing is incredible. Yeah. And the reason it's incredible is because what the Game Awards didn't key in on, but what the actual item did. That's why I'm kind of torn. If you actually load it up, this is showing you the future of next-gen gaming and showing you what real next-gen... I know you did. For anybody who didn't and hasn't, I'm giving context in that regard that if you haven't, first of all, I think you should. Now, I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite here. I have barely been at home. I haven't had time to experience it firsthand myself, but I am absolutely doing so. But I've watched a very long, in-depth Digital Foundry video where they went through all of it, and it's crazy how good it looks and how and what it shows you about the future of gaming. What's that?
I didn't think it looked that great. I'm not telling you it didn't look good, but I don't think it was. I think my biggest problem with it was that the whole time it's Keanu Reeves and whatever. Catherine. That's not Catherine Zeta-Jones. What's her name? Carrie-Anne Moss.
Why'd you do this? Yes,
It's Carrie-Anne Moss. They're talking about we don't know what's real or fake. We don't know what's real or fake. And I'm like, this is all fake. I can tell. You know what I mean? So it took away from it.
I'm with you. It's still clearly a difference between the two, but it's impressive.
But in gameplay, I was like, okay, this looks good, but I don't see why this all looks incredible. I'm not saying it doesn't look good. It looks great.
Yeah.
It's a top tier game, but it was also kind of just this is kind of what I've grown to expect. I think Uncharted 4 in action, I think looked better than anything I played there outside of the cutscenes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I disagree with that. From what I've seen, I do want to see it on my actual console and look through. But there's a lot of implications for it. And I think the bigger thing is it's clearly gaming oriented because it's showing off Unreal Engine 5 on consoles, which we've not actually seen in a way that we can experience ourselves yet. So to that end, it's very video game focused. But the way they chose to show it at the video game focused event was here's a trailer for the movie, and then the Matrix Awakens thing is an afterthought.
Right.
That was kind of the real problem of it,
Well, it's also my thing of imagine if Sony when Sony was doing E3, they'd ended their E3 press conference with a Decima trailer.
Yeah. Fair.
That's insane. And people would be so pissed,
Saul the entire night actually kept being what's going to be there? One more thing, and then there wasn't one more thing.
Yeah, why wasn't Wonder Woman or Alan Wake the last announcement? Why?
Because it would have been disappointing, honestly, for most people. Alan Wake would have been sick, but
first, Alan Wake or
Alan Wake,
it would have been more disappointing than the Matrix Unreal demo.
Well, I think he's saying Alan Wake would have been good, but Wonder Woman wouldn't have been enough of a wow.
See, I
don't know that I agree or disagree with that.
It's currently the least viewed trailer of all of them. So it's statistically proven, that it is not up on people's list. So that would not have been a good now Alan Wake, sure. I think Hellblade could have finished off with it and that would have been fine.
Sure.
But the Matrix was not great.
I think Hellblade actually probably would have
Star Wars.
And Hellblade would have felt I think Hellblade would have felt like when Sony did that. Hey, we're gonna have a gameplay run through of God of War, and it takes up a sizable chunk, and it you leave being wow, I can't believe that was an engine. That's crazy. And actually, it's funny, Chris. That speaks more to what I'm talking about because we're being told at least that Ninja Theory are tapping into Unreal 5 in some degree.
Yeah,
apparently for Senua's Saga or whatever it's called. That actually probably would have been the better thing to end off with because it directly talks about what I'm talking about, where it's the implications of Unreal 5 as an engine and the potential for future of gaming, but showing it in the application of an actual game and not something that's meant to be a small experience.
Yeah.
So, to that end, that would have been pretty cool because you could have that thing of where Jeff keeps being that is gameplay. Yeah, that's awesome that it's gameplay. And it looks amazing. Why was that not something that was more hyped up instead of being thrown in? But I think it was... I'm almost to the thought where I think there was a concerted effort to make sure that the pacing was front loaded. And I'm trying to understand why, but there's no way you're talking about all these reveals and all these things and you're being like, yeah, we probably should spread these out a little bit more. It should be one great reveal and then a couple of small ones, and then one great reveal and a couple of small ones. And instead it was like great reveal, one small reveal, two great reveals, one small reveal, and then small, sometimes interesting reveals for the rest of the show.
I have to imagine that Jeff was self-aware enough to be like, this show isn't great.
Well, and something you just said, right?
People might fall off.
Well, maybe, but and I do want to take a second to really look at this. A challenge that all E3s have, all reveal shows, all award shows, anything that's trying to entertain a group of people, is that gamers are a huge group, and there are so many different types of gamers, and you run into this problem of almost any reveal really runs the risk of having at least a section, no matter how big or how small, of gamers be And so what you try to do is you try your best to balance it where it's like, we feel like a majority of gamers are going to be cool with this one, even if it alienates a couple. But then we can flip and show this more niche thing. And while that may make the bigger group of gamers go, for a second, we've got the attention of the ones who went last time. And then we continue to kind of flip each side of that line as we go through. As someone who likes a pretty large variety of genres and games, I feel like it missed the mark. But I think that that's what they were trying to do, because I have zero interest in looking at a K-pop thing rendered in an engine, but I'm sure someone enjoyed it. It wasn't me, but that's okay. I mean, but that's why you kind of have this thing where it's a standout bad moment for me, and I think for Saul and for you, but in the effort of trying to have a show that by the end of it feels like at least everyone felt like something spoke to them, it's just harder to do when you're doing it for 3.5 hours.
You know what's crazy? Actually, it's not that crazy because involving K-pop. I'm trying to find that tweet that I saw on Friday of the most ranked viewed trailers.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember that Star Wars was number 1 and that The Matrix was number 2 and then Alan Wake was number 3. But at the very bottom, it was Wonder Woman and K-pop. The K-pop thing was above.
Here it is right here.
Hellblade, I think.
All right, so, and these might have changed because this is a couple of days old, but just for context here, Star Wars Eclipse came in 6.7 million views, Warhammer 40K 2.5 million, Sonic Frontiers 2.2 million, Suicide Squad 2 million.
It's crazy. Suicide Squad looks amazing.
Doki V Rockstar, I don't really know what that is. I guess I didn't see that or didn't pay attention. 1.8 million, Elden Ring Story 1.7, and Wonder Woman 1.3.
That's not what I saw, but those numbers look right. Well, I say that.
And these were people who went back and watched the individual trailers separate from the mainstream.
See, I remember the one I saw, I remember Star Wars having, it was either 8 or 10, but it included everything. And it had that K-pop performance in there. It had the Imagine Dragons performance in there. It had everything in there.
Yeah.
And it was the fact that K-pop performance was above, I think it was Suicide Squad. It was above something, and it's like, that's crazy. And then you realize, no, it's not, because it's K-pop.
Yeah. Well, real quick, to round off specifically Rude Colds, and Rude Cold, thanks for being a patron and a long-time listener. He says, was hoping for at least one big reveal thing that he talked about there. Do you really feel like there was... do you feel like there should have been a big reveal from one of those 3 places in a place like this, or do you think it was as necessary at an event like this? Like, did you really expect PlayStation to have something, Chris, or no. Xbox or Nintendo to have something really new? I mean, you could argue that Xbox had something in the way of Senua, and that PlayStation had arguably the same with Horizon, but that was kind of about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess Sony technically has Chia, but I don't know if that's a first-party game or not. Not first-party, but...
And they've technically showed it before, so yeah.
Which I'll say, Chia looks way better than it did at the State of Play.
Right? I was so disinterested in it, and then as it was going through, I was like, this actually looks amazing.
Right.
So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we actually break down the things.
I don't think so, because I think, to me, all this says is that Sony, at least in terms of what we talk about, is Sony's going to have a show at some point soon. That's how I
because this was their
because they're like, okay, well, why would we show stuff here if we're going to do a show? You have to think maybe it will be after February, which would prove a Sony fan wrong, because they're showing Horizon here. So maybe it's like, okay, well, Horizon is going to be out by the time we have a show, but But we're gonna have a show, so we're not going to announce like Kojima's Silent Hill or whatever it is. What'd you say?
I said, or they're going to Deathloop it, where they do have something in January or early February,
and they're going to show it off. They're going to show it off 30 times before it launches.
Yeah, and the thing is I get that gets annoying from us and people who are consistently on the pulse. But the reality is when you want something to sell and you want something to really do well, you have to advertise it like crazy. And the good examples of that is all the things we see, like Cowboy Bebop, barely got. It ended up getting canceled on Netflix, regardless of how good or bad that it was. It got canceled.
Good.
And in large part, partially because they don't really advertise it. We talked about Neo, The World Ends With You doing poorly because Square did not advertise it. The thing is that Deathloop has done better than almost any arcane game in the last entire console generation, and it was marketed like mad, and that's probably partially why. I mean, it had other benefits like being a timed console exclusive and being a actual next gen showcase in some capacities, but I think the biggest reason is that it just got marketed. Everyone knew that Deathloop existed because you saw an advertisement for it at least once. Whereas I think a lot of people didn't even know the Neo, The World Ends With You existed because it wasn't in front of everything. So it's crazy, but yeah. Let's see. Moving on to the next one, we have Rude Days 93. He says, in my opinion, every year the Game Awards continue to get a little worse. Like previous years, the first hour, even if paced terribly and too many commercials, is still pretty good because the big reveals carry it, and you add in a cameo by Jim Carrey automatically makes it a win, no matter how short. But after that, it's just so slow and long. And many celebrities just aren't that entertaining. Just have Joseph Ferris hand awards out and call it a day because his game-winning game of the year and his speech was some good entertainment. I'm actually going to say right now, I don't think Jeff would ever get to the point where he'd want to hand off his baby to someone else, even though he arguably could make just as much money because he likes being the face of it.
Yeah.
But I arguably agree that I think Jeff it comes off as a decent dude, but his hosting style I don't find to be excessively entertaining.
Dry.
Yeah, so I would much prefer, like, honestly, either Joseph Ferris doing everything, or if this entire show would have just been Ben Schwartz. I thought the entire time he was on stage, he was fantastic. I was like, this dude's charismatic. He's got the right attitude. If he continued to carry all this out, this would be a lot more entertaining for 3.5 hours.
Yeah. I'm going to disagree with him there, though. I thought the Jim Carrey thing sucked. That was awful.
I'll tell you,
I hated that.
It was. I liked it in terms of the fact that I liked Jim Carrey and it was funny. I don't know what it had to do with anything. That was the problem.
See, I didn't think it was funny. I was just like, "What are you doing?"
I mean, he's being Jim Carrey, so I guess that's why it was fun. But I felt like they could have tried to do something like, "Hey, let's have him do something in relation to Sonic. Let's have him do something in relation to his character of Eggman." And instead, it's just Jim Carrey talking about his grandfather. Speaking in Irish, with an accent. That's all it really is.
It's like, dude, why is this here? That was, I don't know.
So, but yeah, Ben Schwartz was fantastic. Yeah,
Silent trailer was probably the best trailer of the show.
Oh my God, boy, it's so good.
It does look good.
So yeah, I think that one's good, and that pretty much carries my thing. I do think every year it gets worse, which also, ironically, every year it gets longer.
It does, yeah.
You think at some point you'd be like, how often people think it's good versus how long it is? There's got to be a correlation here. Maybe if we make it shorter, more people have a higher chance of walking away feeling higher about the show. You know what I mean?
Well, the longer it is, the more ads he can put in.
Yep. More money. And I said something to Saul the other day of, you don't really think about it, but now that he's got Summer Games Fest, Jeff Keighley's entire life and his entire income revolves around an event in the summer and an event in the winter. He has to make enough money to keep himself afloat the entire year off of 2 events. So you bet your butt that he's in there like, okay, if I get a Head and Shoulders commercial right here, that's 2 months of here we are, but it is a reality. But
over and over again,
at that point, the problem comes down of being like, just be more open about the fact that that's what's going on, and stop trying to call this something that it isn't. And that's, I think, what's weird. Now, we haven't gotten to something yet. Originally, I said that we were going to give a $10 PSN card to whoever was closest with the amount of awards that were given off screen. Crazy thing happened this year. As far as I can tell, no awards, I don't know why I keep doing that, were given off screen. They were just run through as quickly as possible on screen. This is the first year I've seen that happen. Normally, they would do this thing where they do a couple of reveals or a commercial break, and they'd come back and be like, hey, while we were on commercial break, we gave this award to this game and this award to this game.
I think they did do it, though. I don't think they were as obvious about it, but there were definitely some times, if I'm not misremembering, where they would be like, okay, let's just use It Takes Two for an example, because I don't remember everything on the top of my head. But it'd be like, It Takes Two wins this, and they also won Best Ongoing Divorce Simulator. You know what I mean? Like, it would do that, where they would get an award, but then they would also have gotten an award that we didn't see. I think they did that, but I could be wrong.
You might be right, and it was just a lot more hidden. But I realized, like, it's so hard to get a count. I'm going to try and go back and figure out if I can even get a count that would be able to give us a winner. If I can't, I'm just going to find another thing for us to do to put the 10 in, to give the $10 away. I just thought it was interesting. Chris, though, you cannot make the statement of Divorce Simulator and not go through what Divorce Simulator is as a game. Can we have a little spiel of what you're like? If you had to go sell Divorce Simulator to someone, how do you sell this product? What is this game?
The Dark Souls of marriage simulators.
It's the Dark Souls of Phoenix Wright, divorce lawyer.
Now that
I like that.
That
I
might
would play
be
that
something.
game. Actually, I would play the hell out of that game.
I was thinking like a high drama piece. It's funny that we're doing that. I was thinking like a high drama piece of like a kid who's having to go through divorce, and like you're playing the kid, and it gets really dark as he's going through. Like, do my parents not love me because they don't love each other?
Isn't that exactly what It Takes Two is? Like, isn't that the whole premise?
From what I understand, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Of course, anytime that simulator comes in my head, the actual first thing that hits my head is Shower with Your Dad Simulator, which is just hilarious. And I just want more simulator games to be completely ridiculous. So that's where I'm at here. Okay, so next thing up, we have two more over here, and we had a couple more, but we try to get to a point where we try to take ones that really bring up a point and have something of value to add. We do like hearing from you guys, and I like seeing if you liked it. But good examples, like real quick one of ones that we won't always include is like Liam just said, too long, no huge announcements, way overhyped. I get you, and I agree in many ways, but we try to have ones that open a little more chance for discussion here, like Danny Candyman Villalobos, one of our patrons. He says, I thought it was all right. Nice to see some surprise reveals like Wonder Woman, Alan Wake 2, and the Sonic 2 trailer. I thought for sure Metroid was going to win Game of the Year. I wish Ratchet & Clank would have won in at least one category, but still nice to see nominations, including Game of the Year. Now, part of the reason I really like this answer is because of how much it actually puts back, he front loads it with this talk about seeing the surprise reveals, but the majority of his response is actually in regard to the awards side of this, which the show vastly undersells. It calls itself the Game Awards, and then I think less than a fifth of it was probably actually about the awards, and that's interesting because it's most of the responses have actually been about the reveals, which goes to show you that certain groups of people come into this as the awards are secondary and they don't really matter. This is a reward, or this is an award show, or a reveal show rather than an award show. And then you have people like him who are coming in and being like, I really wanted to see awards given to people to nominate and look at games that I thought were great. And I thought that was a really interesting dichotomy to see between people who were watching it. So I guess real quick, Chris, how much did you actually care about the awards aspect of this show?
0.
Like if you had to really look, Saul.
0.
The reality is that it's mostly 0 for me, but there's a specific thing in here that kind of comes in the next answer that I do think is important to kind of talk about. We've been saying for weeks, though, that we didn't really think the award value from this is something that I would imagine most developers view as higher than some of the other ones like DICE and whatnot. I think no matter what, it's nice for your game to be nominated and to win. I think all those people that were hyped and got up and gave their speech were genuinely excited to have won something because they still got something for their work. But where I'm going to go back to the 0% and actually up mine and call it maybe 25%, maybe less. But Josh Shute says it was fine. Maybe cut out musical performances, though. I have more interest to try out It Takes Two. It wouldn't have won Game of the Year if it was a turd. And Josh messaged me personally, and I think this is actually the community's take I want to take out of this because it's a great question that still ties into the Game Awards while not being something we've talked about. He kind of messaged me and more or less said, like, how much do you think the award value of something like this might act as a way to push people into playing games that they otherwise wouldn't have played? And I will say, Chris and I, as I said, have been talking about playing It Takes Two for a while because I've heard great things away from this. But there is that part of me, and I know Chris feels it too, because as soon as it happened, Chris messaged me and was like, hey man, when are we going to get around to playing It Takes Two? Because there is that thing of like, it won Game of the Year. And while the Game of the Year here doesn't have to really mean anything of value, because I think most people are going to give their own Game of the Year and look at their own thing better, there is that thing of like, the fact that it won does give you more of a push to be like, I really feel like I have a need to play this now so that I can be part of this conversation. Either that, or what I really think is the answer for me and maybe for Chris is like, it won, and even though I don't value this award a ton, there's enough value in it for me to be like, I don't want to miss an experience that won Game of the Year, regardless of why it won Game of the Year, or regardless of how important the award's value actually is. So in that regard, I don't think that it's a 0%, because there are a couple of games that get highlighted as part of these awards that I'm like, I don't know if I would have played that otherwise, or that I would have felt as strong of a need to play it. But it went from I really need to play It Takes Two to like, I really need to play It Takes Two. I've heard enough talk about it, and this kind of pushed me over that edge of, I messaged Chris back and I was like, when are we going to figure this out? We got to figure out how to play this soon. So that we can really talk about this apparently fantastic experience as part of our Game of the Year discussions. So that was all the answers we got on there. For anything that, I know I kind of moved through those quick, do you guys have anything to add to either of those?
No, I don't know.
Really for me.
I just think people need to lower their expectations for the Game Awards. I really don't think this show was not in line with what came before. It was just longer.
I agree, and I think that's actually why it was worse. It was in line, but it was just like it was longer. It gets a lot better when you don't have to feel like you're ignoring large swaths of it. It was to the point where when we moved in here to play Magic while we were watching it, when we turned the TV back on, I thought that multiple ads were playing because it was a Head and Shoulders commercial, and it wasn't even like trying to be a Head and Shoulder commercial from what I can tell that was gamified, like to try and make it fit the theme. It was just a Head and Shoulders commercial. And I thought, wait, did we miss something here? But oh well. So kind of going in, I think we're going to quickly move through all of the reveals in a way, and then kind of just stop and talk about the ones that we thought really stood out in any capacity. So if any game that I bring up going through this list, guys, I'm going to try and give enough room for one of y'all to be like, hey, I thought that one was cool. There's ones I'm pretty sure I know are going to be a big deal. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is Quantic Dream's Star Wars game, Eclipse. Now, I know Saul and I were both like, this looks really interesting. And then not only did it look interesting, seeing Quantic Dream at the end actually made me go, oh, wait. So, Chris, I'll start with you. Are you a big fan of any of the Quantic Dream games?
I wouldn't say I'm a big fan, but like I like Heavy Rain. It's the only one I've actually finished. Jason.
So do them being attached to this Star Wars game move the needle more than just what the trailer showed, any more or less? Because I'll say for me, I definitely I thought it looked interesting, and then seeing Quantic Dream behind it, I was like, I'm even more in than I was. You know what I mean?
No, because all the rumors are indicating that this isn't a typical Quantic Dream game to begin with. So I was also
first thing out of my mouth, as I said, this is the first time Quantic Dream is making a new game with Tencent backing and being independent. There's nothing to say that this will be the style of game that Detroit or Heavy Rain was in. And that's both interesting, a little worrying, but also mildly exciting. Because it's like, it's worrying because I know that their formula that they have right now works for me. But it's also exciting because it's like, what do they do with newfound freedom and a new hardware generation and these things? Like, do they really try and push their scope that much more? Because Detroit adds a lot of freedom to their games that weren't in previous games. And it'd be curious to see how they continue to push that envelope and what a non-story, I don't say story-driven, but what a non-choice-driven story game from them really looks like. If that is exactly what it is.
I just don't think Star Wars is a good franchise, so like doesn't move the needle for me at all.
Now, that's interesting because I know that Saul likes Star Wars. And if I'm not mistaken, Saul, you have read some of the, before Disney purchased, the original Extended Universe books and stuff, right?
Yeah, they don't matter now.
They don't matter at all now, sadly. But I know that there's a deep thing there. And what I'd kind of say is that I agree with you that Star Wars has kind of gotten to a point where the latest few movies really didn't do much for me, sadly, for a number of reasons. But I think that there's a really interesting core there that can be tapped into. So I was actually excited to see it, and I know Saul was as well. Saul, what about it excited you? I mean, I know we were kind of talking like seeing, is that C-3PO? It's like the characters matter, but like...
It's just a new Star Wars stories is always interesting to see how they do them.
Yeah. I agree with that.
That's
I think the vagueness of the trailer actually helped it, because like seeing all these images and references and seeing this guy rise up from like this black tar, you kind of just looking at it like, what is this? And that's cool, because I like the idea of looking into parts of Star Wars lore that we don't normally get to see from the most prevalent media, you know? So in that regard, I think that's really cool. Another big one that I know Chris and I are for sure excited for, and I think Saul is too, Alan Wake 2.
Let's go.
That's pretty good.
Dude, that I agree with Saul on one thing. I'm excited for it. I think the way they chose to show it was a little odd, because I know as it was going on, Saul and I were like, this is a little odd, and like, you know, the flashing of it and everything. But at the same time, there's a lot of implications that Control have brought into the Alan Wake universe that the game has to contend with now, which makes me excited, but it also means that you're going to have to try and pivot the way that you present the game. So I'm not surprised to see it. Chris, what are you excited about in an Alan Wake 2? Like, if you, both of us having played it recently, what do you want to see them expand on?
I just really like the story of Alan Wake. I like the writer writing his own hell world, basically.
So here's my question, really. Do you think, or how do you think, rather, they move forward with Alan Wake now that they've already done that? Do you think they can try and have it be that him as a writer is continuing to have to write, or is that gimmick sold and gone with this game? Do you really think it works if they try and leverage it in a second game, or do you think they have to change how they
I can't answer that question because I've yet to play the AEW DLC for Control. So
I haven't either, and that might very well answer the question for us.
But it's a survival horror game, so I'd almost bet that you're going to be playing Alan possessed by the darkness. I'd be willing to bet that money.
Well, and the ending of the first game is fairly vague in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's a fair point. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see the gameplay sped up a little bit. Personally, I think that while it's a quite old game, so I'm not being that harsh on it, I thought the gameplay was an interesting idea that felt clunky due to its age, and I'd like to see that sped up a little bit and be a lot smoother. I think Control plays a lot better than Alan Wake, but Alan Wake is a very interesting story in game and character set, much like Control is. So yeah, I'm curious to see, like, you know, what do they do now that we know that the Alan Wake events were an otherworld event, as Control, you know, calls them an altered event or whatever.
Don't know.
So in that sense, I'm very curious to see what they choose to do with this. But I'm not surprised. As soon as they announced Alan Wake, as soon as they announced that they had the Alan Wake rights again, and then that they were doing remaster, I was like, oh yeah, they're doing 2. And he's part of the AEW expansion. Yeah, they're doing a 2. So that's cool. You know, I think there's been a lot of times where Remedy's had to walk away from characters that they've made, and it's not always been for the better. Surprisingly, Max Payne 3 was actually a great game.
I was about to say, Max Payne 3 is better than the other 2. So
it is, though it also feels vastly different. Like, I do think it's a better game, but stylistically it's drastically different. You know, they don't even try and keep it in tone, but it was still good.
Remedy had a hell of a show, I'll say that.
Yeah. Next thing up, Warner Brothers announces Wonder Woman being developed by Monolith, which, for anyone who doesn't know, are the team behind Fear 1 and 2, and then also behind Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. So they've already confirmed that the game is being built on top of and powered by their Nemesis system. No surprise, it's a really great AI system. Curious to see how they're going to bring that in here, and if they're just going to do what Fear did with it and let it be genuine AI so that you have smart enemies that react in a way that feels realistic. or if they're going to try and have something come in where they lean on the way they leveraged it in the Shadow games, where they have you do something to someone, they come back with a vengeance based on what you did to them. I don't know. The thing is I don't really know how much I care about the idea of playing as Wonder Woman as a character, but Monolith being behind it and me loving a lot of their games, I'm very willing to give it a try. So did you have any
Couldn't care less.
I remembered seeing your face be like,
Could not care less. I'm not a big fan of single superhero video games that aren't in my, like, you have to be one of my favorite superheroes for me to care about
for it to work.
And
so you think Wonder Woman works as part of like a Justice League game? You just don't think?
Sure, I don't care.
Yeah, you don't care about her in the Justice League.
If it's not
game,
Batman if it's not Batman or Spider-Man, I don't care.
As standalone game.
As a standalone game, yeah, I just don't care.
Interesting. Oh, because it's single. Yeah, because I would say Guardians of the Galaxy, but Guardians of the Galaxy is also 5. You have a
Guardians
lot
of the Galaxy or even Suicide Squad. Yeah. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Chris, are you a Wonder Woman fan at all?
I'm not a
or
fan,
a Monolith
but
fan?
I'll play it. I do like Monolith a lot. I love Fear 1, 2, and 3. I don't actually know if they made 3, but I think they did.
They did.
And then I have I'm still a Fear 1 and 2 fan. And then I like I have the Platinum in Shadow of Mordor, and I didn't go back to Shadow of War, but I will at some point. So I'll play this. I'm excited for it. You can get me. I'm I sim for cape shit, so I'll play it.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what they're going to do here. I mean, we're seeing Warner Brothers seemingly want to try and catch up to Marvel's slew of, hey, let's continue to make our games properties, which is interesting because they did it first. But then they just let Marvel come in and start being like, we're gonna bombard you with Marvel character games, and DC's like, oh, we can do that too. We did that before. Let's do it some more. Yeah. So we've already kind of talked about the fact that it happened, but former Silent Hill creator announces Slitterhead. Very interesting looking game. And at first I was like, this kind of looks bad, but then in the context of it being like kind of a 2D looking game, I think it could work. But it was weird. I mean, I think it was also had to be balanced by the fact that it felt like it was about to be a reveal of something more than it was, and that's completely my fault. I mean, me and Saul both kind of gave it weight that wasn't there. But I'd also argue that whoever made that trailer should have known that the moment you say in 1999 Silent Hill was released, someone's gonna be like, they're finally showing Kojima's Silent Hills. It's just kind of an inevitable thing. That wasn't anything too big. Do any of you want to talk about that?
It looks interesting, but other than that,
about it.
Yeah.
Arc Raiders, rad robot shooting co-op game. Didn't move the needle for me at all.
Not at all.
I thought Chris? It looked great until I found out it was free to play. No, I don't care.
Actually, there was a couple of times in this that Saul went from like, well, that looks like it could be interesting, but it's free to play, so no.
Actually, I called what it was from the second I saw it.
You did.
I'm just like, nah.
Yeah. Now, this one's interesting, and I really do want to talk about this because it's vague, but it's vague in a way that I think is purposeful to a degree. Sonic Frontiers.
Looks cool.
We kept talking about how we were making the joke about Sonic Adventure 3, but a lot of people were kind of like, this next 3D Sonic really has to like grip the entire fan base, because the problem with the Sonic games across the board is that they're always split. Moving Sonic to an open world, which is what this looks like, and I think they've confirmed, looks really interesting. And I think it could definitely work. But something I said is kind of a joke, but then as soon as I said it, I thought, wait, this is actually a great idea. Is when you saw like the big Colossus dude kind of stand up, I thought Sonic, but Shadow the Colossus. And I think that's such an amazing idea. I think that you should be able to like run up around, and then the whole room continued to kind of build on the idea. Saul's little brother, Seth, it was like you could have it where it's an open world, but then as you start to climb the Colossus, and this actually might have been Saul.
That was me that said
moved to 2D.
Yeah.
As a way to kind of like pay homage to both fan bases. Like when you get on the Colossus to start running up them, it moves to a flat, like kind of like Nier did whenever you're going around cylindricals, have where it's 2D and you're running up and you have kind of classic Sonic style as you're moving up them, and then you have moments where you're also kind of bouncing around and doing Sonic Adventure style things.
So
there's a chance.
Not to compare them, but almost like how Breath of the Wild, the bosses, like they had like insides that you had to play through to stop them. So that would be that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And in a lot of ways, Shadow of the Colossus is still a good point there, because a lot of the times they're like the final boss in Shadow of the Colossus is a puzzle. You have to figure out how to climb him.
Yep.
Like all the bosses are puzzles, but that's a good example of it being literally a platforming puzzle that you're trying to work your way up through. So in that regard, I think it's a great idea, and I think it could be really used to move Sonic in a way that doesn't feel as corny as... I'm not saying that it was bad because I didn't play it, but Sonic Forces, I think there was a level of that where people like, it looks like it's trying to be adult and mature, but also corny all at the same time. Having not played it, I don't want to have a strong opinion. I've heard even from people who are normally pretty mad about Sonic that it was pretty good once they played it when it became free to play. But I think that's the example that most people are not willing to take chances on 3D Sonic games because they've been more consistently bad than they've been consistently good. But Sonic Frontiers looks cool.
Yeah, I thought it looked
next
cool.
thing. New Horizon Forbidden West trailer, seeing some more gameplay kind of go through that and looking. It's quick snippets of gameplay, but I think it looks excellent. And they've been kind of showing stuff on the blog in line with it. I think this is great looking, and I'm sure they're showing the PS5 version, but the game looks gorgeous. It looks way more saturated and very colorful. I don't know if that's on purpose or what, but it looks amazing. So heard you a couple times go, man, that was cool.
Yeah, pretty much the same exact feeling. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I mean, it's exactly what it looks like. Like it's hard. That's not even a problem. But the issue that I have with Horizon is like they can show us something, and I'm like, that it looks exactly how I expected it to look.
Yeah, and
it's not a surprise.
Yeah, and because the magic of the first game, it was like I've never seen that before. It's not gone, but it's like it's a known quantity.
You know, like they could do like they did the elephant, and it's just like. That's an elephant. Like that's an elephant.
It looked awesome.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But yeah, it's like I hope that they could throw something in this game to make it change up a little bit.
My hope is, and I don't know that it's going to happen, but my hope for this game is that we start seeing like where the machine that's continuing to make these things and have these animals
and what that
starts messing up.
Yeah,
I want to see it start spitting out like weird versions of multiple
hybrids.
Monsters that are put together because something happens with Hades corrupting the machine, and you start seeing Silence or whoever, depending on if he's actually bad, starts to have an impact on what's going on. So that's kind of my hope, is that they use it to move away from everything just being robotic versions of normal animals, which is cool, and it's not lost its novelty, but it doesn't really surprise you anymore. And I think you could surprise people by actually being like, here's new creations that kind of look horrific as part of this crazy overall story. Chris, any thoughts on Horizon's new stuff?
No, I didn't watch it. I don't want to see any more of it.
I figured that's the one thing that I think the game's having to deal with, is much like Deathloop, you're showing too much, but
it's not even that.
Arguably,
I just don't want to see the game. I'd rather I'm going to play it. I don't need to see it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, but somebody else has to see it to make the decision they're going to play it. The difference for all of us is that we know we're going to play it. So
right,
it's going to be interesting. Also, just so you're aware still, you don't have to buy that game because the collector's edition comes with a digital copy for some stupid reason.
My man.
Was making sure that you're aware of that.
Playing Dying Light first anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I figured you were, yeah. Whereas Saul, I think, is playing Elden Ring first. So
yeah. Speaking
of Elden Ring, we got a new trailer showing a lot of new story elements to it. Now, Chris, I know that you're not a big Elden Ring guy.
Not going to bother. I'm going to
leave this one
what
to
I think about it.
Yeah, and for me, it's nothing new. This looks cool.
Yeah, it does look cool, but there was some. Of course, it's just all mystery though. But showing a couple of new people, being like, "What is this? What is that?" But the game is where you solve that mystery, so it does look cool. Forspoken. This one's interesting. Coming back around. I'm so back and forth on this game. I don't know what to think about it. I think it looks good at times, and I think at other times I'm like, this looks really rough. And I don't know if that's just because it's new IP and they're trying to find their ground, but considering that it's coming in like 7 months, I'm willing to give it a chance. From what I'm showing so far, I'm still willing to give it a chance. I will buy it. I don't feel like I know I'm going to like it yet. That's about as much as I have to say. Is that pretty much sum everyone up?
Yeah.
I can tell you the gameplay looks sick. I couldn't care less about the story.
I couldn't care less about the story. The environment looked empty.
They haven't tried to make the story interesting is the problem. They do this vague thing, but not vague in a way that makes you actually want to ask questions. Just vague. Because you don't even have something that you can base the question off of. The only question you really have is, why are there two worlds? Why is she going between the new and the old? But that by itself is not compelling enough to make me be like, I really need to play that game. I need more. Yeah. And maybe they'll give it to us and show it us, but I do want to I want to show support for new IP from Square, because I think that they need to. I think big studios need to be pushing more towards new IP, except for instead of it just primarily being like Sony, Nintendo, and PlayStation, because they have motive to do it, to try and get console sales. I want to see big publishers kind of do that. Like, I think it's time for Rockstar to show us a new game and not just Red Dead 3 and Grand Theft Auto 6. But I know that everyone wants Grand Theft Auto 3 or Grand Theft Auto 6 and Red Dead 3. So I don't know. I guess it's me.
Not everyone.
Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League looks super good.
It looks good.
It looks like, way better than I thought it was going to look. Chris, you look like you're not as sold on it.
It looks great, but I hate that the Flash is a villain in this game. I hate it. Not because I like the Flash, which I do. It's because it doesn't make any fucking sense. Doesn't make any sense.
Now, why do you think it doesn't make sense?
Because the Flash can run so fast. I think in the comics, he has run 1,000 times the speed of light. And you're trying to tell me that Captain Boomerang can kill him? Shut up.
That sounds like stupid. That sounds like a flaw in Flash's design, though. To be fair,
no, it's not. That's the point of the Flash.
No, that's the point of bad DC writing. You can't make characters invincible, and then the second there's a challenge for them, all of a sudden, no. But you just made it sound like he can't be touched. Right?
That's
like, what's the point of running a bajillion miles an hour? But then what's the what?
Then he's invincible, right?
Yeah. What kind of character flaw can he have? He's a bad character.
Just like
Superman. Superman is a bad character.
No, that's no,
Both of those are awful takes, and we need to move on.
No,
I don't think it makes any sense that, regardless, even if he ran 300 miles an hour, it doesn't make sense that a dude with boomerangs and a shark and a girl with a baseball bat could kill him. It doesn't make any sense.
Don't wrong. I'll give you that. Nerfed. And look, I'll give you that in the sense of, and also I was about to say, I think he is nerfed. I think part of what's going on here, and clearly they're leaning on the Brainiac thing, where they're corrupted as part of that, and the whole goal is that the only people that are still around to be able to do anything is the Suicide Squad, because the heroes have all been co-opted. So I think that's clearly a good idea. And I think looking at it at a macro level and being like, hey, having some ragtag group of villains try to overcome these corrupted heroes, but not in the way that like Injustice tries to do it, where it's like an event makes. And
it's Suicide Squad. Who even says they win?
Yeah,
which is the point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nobody says they boss. Win.
Is that what the game actually said?
That's what they said. That he was the first.
They showed he was a boss, but I didn't see him saying he was the first.
It seemed like he was set up to be like the villain across the game.
I think they have to kill all of them. They even showed Superman, so he's definitely not the only.
Eventually they have to kill the Flash. I mean, if the goal of the game is for the Suicide Squad to actually win, which remains to be the question.
It's weird, and we don't know to what extent like he's being controlled. It could be something that could be taken out, so as the control stops, it's hard to say.
Them being corrupted is actually part of what I was thinking too. Like, you have freedom in writing with that control to have it to be where they're not as cunning or as resourceful as they usually are due to some kind of outside influence. And they may not actually lean on that. And if not, then Chris, I think you have a stronger argument about the fact that there are characters within DC that I'm not going to say that they're just, I agree with Saul in the sense that that's normally why I don't care about Superman stories, is because he's very hard to write to where there's real stakes, because they've constantly made sure that they continue to make him better and better and better to the point it's like nothing can stop this guy. So why I shouldn't even believe that there's real. It may not be the point, but I'm telling you why I don't care about Superman, because I don't feel like there's any realistic stakes that I could believe, because you've shown me that no matter what. It's honestly why I haven't bothered to watch Dragon Ball Super, because no matter what, you're going to make Goku suddenly pull some new power out of his ass, and he's once again just invincible, and you're going to continue riding him into this invincible corner. Go ahead, tell me why do you disagree?
No. We're not going this far off the podcast. We got a big old list to go through. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes.
We do.
We're not becoming a comic book podcast.
I think the game looks great, and the thing I wanted to say that I know that Saul and I agree is that
my take may suck, but it's my take.
It is my take as well. This looks an awful lot like Sunset Overdrive.
It does.
Not in a bad way, though. Yeah.
It looks really
fun. Good. Also, if this is a games as a service, which remains to still be seen, which we've talked about, Chris, whether or not this is going to happen.
Not. Please be like Guardians of the Galaxy.
I hope it is as well. But if this is a game as a service, this is a much better foundation of a way to make it work than what I'm seeing from the way they chose to do Avengers.
This automatically looks better than Avengers to me.
This looks way better than Avengers ever.
Way better.
And I'm not even really trying to crap on Avengers at this point, more so than I'm trying to say that this is how you take multiple characters and put them into a world that's interesting and play.
I'll hold you accountable for that, Avengers. Yeah.
So,
because by definition, that's what people will say. Oh, you're crapping on them. If that's accountability, then sure.
Yeah, exactly. A Plague Tale Requiem.
I still need to play the first one.
Amazing. But yes, I think it's a game that I would not play out of serialized fashion. You should definitely play the first if you have interest in playing the second. Considering it was free on PS Plus, if you were lucky enough to grab it, then please play it. It looks great. I don't want to say much more than that because it's a game that I think the majority of talking about what makes it exciting is all story focused, and I don't want to spoil anything. Here's a moment. Saints Row.
Nope.
Chris,
nope,
you think Saints Row looks amazing?
No, I don't.
Really?
I think it looks awful.
It does.
It looks boring.
Okay.
It looks flat.
It looks like
the story looks like it sucks. I have no interest in that game.
Okay. I clearly have misread something then. I
Blake
credited
thinks
something
it looks
to you.
good.
That's what it is.
I was gonna say, Brett was like, Chris thinks this game looks really good. Or wasn't there watching it?
I must have been reading you and Blake's and just like as I was glancing down, mixing your two names and responses with each other.
Blake was like, "Oh, this looks really good," and then I laugh reacted, and he was like, "It really does," and I was like, "I'm glad you're excited."
This looks like Watch Dogs mixed with Grand Theft Auto Online, not Grand Theft Auto 5, not Grand Theft Auto 4, Grand Theft Auto Online.
I
have no
like
in this.
there's things I'm seeing that showing this makes me go back towards like there being a little more Saints Row here, but I'm not that interested. I don't think it looks great. I hope it does well, just for anybody that wants it to do well. Next thing up, Final Fantasy VII Remake finally coming to PC. I don't think that's anything that we have to talk long about, but this is clearly coming at some point. Yeah, so
$70,
not surprising. PC. Yep, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. It is.
We're gonna finally see them PC prices start to move. Anybody that didn't think it was gonna happen,
right on sale.
Next thing, Steel Rising. This is what's interesting. This is one of those ones where I'm having a hard time recognizing it from name alone. Oh, yeah. No. Okay. This is the new game from Spiders.
Yeah.
This actually does look mildly interesting. And it being Spiders and me loving Greedfall means that I have a high chance of playing this just because it's so unlikely that we'll get Greedfall 2 because they got bought out by Nacon that we're just this is the closest thing I'm going to get. So I'm hoping they've learned all the lessons that they needed to learn as they went into Greedfall, and they continue to make games with those lessons intact because Greedfall was their first game I've ever been able to beat. And I thought was amazing. So we can hope that this ends up being amazing as well. All right. Let's see. Persona 4 Arena Ultimax Combo. Or whatever. It's Ultimax.
I don't remember that.
We must have missed that. You know what? That's probably one of the ones when you were trying to go back and show Seth Star Wars.
No, because that was during a performance. It might have been while we were moving.
Could have been, yes. But no, we moved during Imagine Dragons.
Then I don't know.
I don't know either. That's okay. We were a little late coming in to the show. We
had to set the TV up and stuff.
Yeah, well, not even that. We were a little late because of pizza. We actually missed it. Oh, yeah. We missed Forza winning and at least one reveal. Let's see.
Pizza Hut's garbage.
Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2.
This is cool, but
I think it looks good.
I'm not a massive... I want to be a Warhammer fan. I just can't be.
Yeah, it looks cool. I'm willing to try it, but I'm not saying I am going to try it. Chris, any thoughts on Warhammer?
No.
I like okay. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No.
Yeah. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is giving us yet another asymmetrical horror game, which I guess is exactly what's going to happen with these kinds of horror games this horror franchise that one guy kills a lot of people. So I'm not surprised by that. But I haven't really loved any of them. That's kind of the weird thing here. Who is the developer here? Sumo Digital. That's interesting because Sumo is a great developer.
Yeah. They did. Okay. I like Dead by Daylight. I don't really need another one of these though.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you have Dead by Daylight, Friday the 13th game that they made.
13th.
We have the Predator game that they made. We had a Jason game. That was Friday the 13th. I'm done. Yeah, I don't know why my brain does that sometimes, but yes. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's getting flooded because the thing is that even if one of those manages to continue building, and I think of all of them, Dead by Daylight's the one that's maintained the most popularity.
Yeah, it's still excellent.
Either this game kills Dead by Daylight, which I guess is just capitalism, baby, but probably not, or this gets killed because everybody just sticks with what they know, and Dead by Daylight, who has brought in so many other franchises into it anyway, that it kind of eschews the need. Yeah, it eschews the need for a full-on game. So,
like as a single player, like survival horror, kind of what I hope Gollum is, where it's like there's no real combat, it's all just stealth. I would be interested. I'm not interested in a multiplayer Texas Chainsaw Massacre game.
Basically, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it's alien isolation and you're just trying to get your way out of, like you're trying to survive the night.
Yeah, exactly. Like you got to hide from them, and that's the whole thing. There's traps. That would be cool, but.
That game kind of exists, though. That's basically the evil within all the times that you're not actually shooting people.
Yeah, I'm just saying this game specifically should be that.
Fair point.
You know.
Sure. Okay. Battle Royale. We already talked about that with PUBG going free to play. Rumbleverse is yet another. It's a Battle Royale brawler, is what they're calling it. But dude, what is with this? Free to play brawling games, and this is Epic Games publishing this. I don't think this looks great.
No, it looks awful.
This looks a lot like Knockout City, which came and went. And I don't mean that in like actual gameplay, but they show it off a bunch. And actually, stylistically, looking at this, it looks like if you shove Knockout City and that racing game that everyone forgot about, Destruction All-Stars.
Yeah.
It looks like if you just shove those two together, their marketing style, their art style, everything. And it means it's probably going to be very forgettable. It's interesting to see them continue to pump so much money into those types of things. Star Trek Resurgence, I'm not a big Star Trek fan, nor did I think that looked incredibly interesting. I think the most interested I've ever been in Star Trek was Bridge Commander or whatever it was called. That was VR, and like everybody had a role in the ship, and it was about surviving out, using that to go through. I don't think this looks great. It seems like from your responses that's the same for everyone else. So instead, Babylon's Fall is coming in March 2022. I think this game looks okay. I'm significantly less excited for it than I was when all that we saw was like a weird CG trailer when they first announced it. I don't think it looks terrible.
Took too long
to come out. I do agree with that. Announced too early and set odd expectations. But now on a cold day where I don't have anything to go on, I might buy it and play it, but that's about it. Among Us VR, not a lot to talk about there because that's coming PSVR, but we still don't even have Among Us on the other consoles besides Switch. So right now I'm in a holding pattern of not believing that Among Us is hitting consoles until one of them actually finally releases.
Did I make
Among
it
Us
up
is fun. But
isn't that coming out like in a week? I thought it was the 13th of December.
They finally gave it a release date, but you know how long they've been talking about this, and it just keeps not existing. So
it's been so long the game's not relevant anymore.
I think the game's still fun, and they're doing a lot to try and make it relevant, but it's not nearly as relevant as it was. You were correct. Yeah. Also, I actually think this could be super fun.
I could see it.
As much as I'm kind of crapping on it, I could see this being really fun, but that remains to be seen. So we're going to see. Something that we talked about a little bit earlier, and I guess we can go ahead and say it here, is kind of in the same vein as Sonic. We got to see the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 trailer. And I think that this is fitting place to put it because it's very game focused. And even more so after looking at the story that they're choosing to employ, which is clearly pulling from Sonic 3.
Yep.
Where they introduced Knuckles in the original games. I knew that Knuckles was going to be in here. I was always wondering how they're going to do it. And it's exactly what I thought about. He's going to be antagonistic towards Sonic due to Robotnik's meddling. And dude, seeing everything that they showed, seeing the Master Emerald, it looks so good.
It's sad that that's like my favorite thing to come out of there, other than obviously.
I think honestly that might be the most hyped I was the entire game night thing because I was just like, this is so cool. This is everything I wanted it to be.
Seeing that
I didn't think that they were going to be ballsy enough to do.
Sonic 3 is the story too, pretty much.
Here's the thing that I really think happened. I think that originally the first Sonic movie was not intending to be that game accurate, and instead they just ended up kind of doing this thing where they listened to fans who wanted it to be more game-like with the design, but they couldn't change the movie much. So while the movie was solid and I enjoyed it, it didn't feel like it was that indebted to the game's lore. Instead, I feel like because they learned the lesson in the first movie that everybody wanted it to be more game-like, when it came time to start working on the second movie, when the first one did well because of game fans responding accurately, they were like, we got to go into this game making sure we're hitting the lore. We got to talk about the Master Emerald. We got to talk about the origination of the rings. We got to talk about the Echidna and what their role is. And every bit of that coming together looks so awesome. I can't believe that this is happening this way.
Yeah.
Also,
this is really good.
This didn't sound like Idris Elba to me. I was like blown away. I was like, oh, that's
him? I loved it. Yeah,
it sounds awesome.
It sounds so good.
It does.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm excited. Okay, Life is Strange, True Colors Dev, which is Deck 13, are adapting a game for Telltale Games, which is interesting. This is actually one of the times where Telltale Games is doing something, but not themselves. So I didn't feel much of that. I don't know what The Expanse is. I know it's a show, but I just don't know much about it besides that.
Good show, good books.
I've heard great things about it. I just haven't watched any of it. Next thing, Fall Guys is getting Halloween Town, Nightmare Before Christmas crossover stuff. This is information that I'm not surprised to see here, but I don't think it moves the needle for anybody. So there it goes. Fall Guys is still kicking. That's good. Evil West, the third person. This actually does look okay. The little third person Doom looking style game. That was this one, if you remember. Yeah. This looked cool. Yeah. But also this looks like a game that can be visually cool, but it misses the mark everywhere else. So I need to see way more before.
That's the one where the cinematic trailers, we were like, that looks kind of mediocre. Then when we saw the gameplay, we're like, that looks okay now.
Yeah, I think that is correct.
Well, what is that rating?
Rating pending?
No, go back.
Likely mature 17.
What is?
Because it's unrated. It's currently unrated.
I've never seen them guess at a rating.
Yeah, this looks cool. So we'll see. Really, that's the best thing I can say. We'll see. But I'm willing to give it a chance. The thing is that this kind of reminds me of a game that's trying to look into this idea of being like a more action-y Soulsborne style game in a lot of the ways that they're trying to present it. And that sometimes works. Like I think that Lies of P, Pinocchio original story that's trying to be Soulsborne looks cool. But I want to see this actually come together and see what it ends up being. If it's more Neo-like, if it's very action-y. I'm willing to try it, though, and I think Focus makes a lot of great games. So.
The character designs for that game is really cool. But then again, they stole from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Well, they also stole it from Dark Watch, just with a little more stank on it.
Like this looks just...
And also, there's a game called Helsing or something like that.
You mean an anime called Helsing?
No, I'm trying to actually remember what it's called. But it's basically it's a Van Helsing Diablo style game.
Don't know if that would be any good.
Hold on, I'm gonna look up real quick.
Go look up Magical Musketeers for Yu-Gi-Oh!
The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing. Literally is what it's called.
No.
So it's an action RPG that is very highly rated on PC only. There goes that. Let's see. Last few things here. Journey. Here it is. Cuphead, the delicious last course, is fine. I haven't gotten around to playing Cuphead, even though
that game should have won most ongoing game.
Yeah. Let's see. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands got shown off. Cool. I actually liked the little banter there. It was pretty cool, though. I thought it was so interesting that you said that because his little brother Seth said, "Oh, this kind of reminds me of watching you play Brutal Legend." And then I look in the Discord and I see they missed the opportunity to cross over with Brutal Legend here, and they did. I completely agree with that.
It looked like Jack Black too, so when it didn't sound like him, I was like, "Why did you do that? You know, like why didn't you just do Brutal Legend then?"
Yeah, but I think it's because at this point, I actually think. As weirdly as it is, I don't think EA owns the rights to Brutal Legend as an entire IP. I'm pretty sure that. Oh God, I'm forgetting the name of their development studio.
I don't remember.
I can't believe I'm doing that. Double Fine. Hold on.
Double Fine.
Thank you. I think Double Fine. Yeah.
Tim.
My whole brain is failing. Tim Schafer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
God, Chris, you're just really on one today. You got this. I think that they retained the rights to that. So I guess at this point it would have to be Xbox exclusive. But honestly, even if it just was like, hey, on Xbox you get to play as Jack Black's Brutal Legend character, that'd be awesome.
That'd be cool.
That'd be really cool. Either way, last couple things here. Or last thing. This one's very odd. Metal Hellsinger. This is the one that had Matt Heafy come out from Trivium and be like, hey, this is a first-person shooter game that's a rhythm game. And that description sounds cool.
It does.
What was shown, I don't think it looked as... okay, I don't think it looks good. I'm going to say that.
I don't
think it looks absolutely terrible, but Saul did make a really good point.
This is this is the perfect game that you see on the background of a movie. Like somebody's playing a video game in a movie. This is the game.
But they don't want to have to license out a real game, so they create like little CGI stuff.
This looks just like a fake game. It looks like a demonic from Grandma's Boy.
What's weird is that this actual picture looks cool.
Yeah.
The moment you actually go to the gameplay, it completely loses it.
The HUD is bad.
The game could end up being fun.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, but stylistically, I am not a fan.
What was the name of this game again? Because I don't remember this. Now I have to see it.
Metal Hellsinger. I'm literally watching it right now. It's weird because it kind of reminds me of Doom, and it looks like someone was just playing Doom. I was like, what if you just took Rip and Tear and just made an entire game?
That's what they did
out of crazy metal stuff.
But it's already like that.
That's the problem, is that Doom is already that.
Doom is already like a metal tempo game. So like then you have this.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember this. I thought this was a VR game. That's why I didn't think it looked like crap.
No, but it looks like a VR game.
I said the exact same thing. I thought that this would look cool as a VR game. I was like, this completely loses it as a as a standalone game. Pricing is everything too, though. If that's a $20 game, I'm a lot more willing to try it.
You think those music licenses amount to $20?
That's why I don't think so. But it depends. If they wrote original music for all this game, then it's okay. If they are pulling other songs,
you saw they had like Lamb of God and stuff like that.
Well, those people are involved with the game. But this could be like when Korn wrote the entire soundtrack for Queen of the Damned movie. It was just original songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they could do that here. I mean, in a lot of ways. That's what Doom did a lot of original music. That's awesome. So
yeah,
it's interesting. That's it.
If Sims 3 can get Rise Against to do Savior and Simlish, it can't be that hard.
Yeah.
Is Rise Against really in Sims?
Sims 3, there is a version of their song Savior that he sent. I have it. You don't got to worry about it. I'll show them. That is their it's Savior, but they got Rise Against and the singer to sing the song in Simlish.
It's so good.
I don't want to see this. This sounds like one of those nightmares that you can't wake up from.
It actually genuinely doesn't sound bad. Like, it sounds like Savior, just in gibberish.
Yeah, I got to remember where you put. I think you posted it in the trophies on here.
Yeah,
but very, very interesting.
So, what's our community's take for the week?
So, the community's take that I'm doing is actually going to come courtesy of one of our listeners. I actually like doing that anyway. So, it's from Josh Shute. And I'm going to word it his exact way because I think I like doing that. But the spirit was kind of what I said is when you see the awards, do certain awards tend to push you more towards having a reaction with the game? So way he worded it right here, he says, does the Game Awards have a sway on whether somebody wants to buy a game or not, especially those games that happen to win awards? That's how I'm going to leave the question.
Okay.
And you answer once I get it posted, and I'm really interested to see his answer. I'm gonna go ahead and throw out. He says he had light interest in playing It Takes Two, but now when it won Game of the Year, like he said in his community's take answer, he wants to try it. And I agree. I think that's something that's actually one of the benefits of the awards. So we'll talk more about that next week. But thank you guys for joining us for 241. I'm gonna let Saul do the outro rigmarole as he always does.
Yep. Thank you guys for tuning in. So you'll see us next time, of course, for episode 142. And if you want to be able to join in with the community's take, feel free to join us on our Discord. That's linked in the description below. You can follow us on Twitter at Triangle SQRD. We have a Facebook group called Triangle Squared, a PlayStation Podcast. And of course, we have this YouTube channel, and we're across all podcast services, as Brett mentioned earlier. And as Brett also mentioned earlier, we have Patreon over at patreon.com/Nartech, where you can support us just for as low as $1 a month. That helps us out with studio costs. RSS feed monthly costs. Actually, it's a yearly cost now, but it's stuff that goes into making the show that is behind the scenes, that is it's not cheap. It's definitely helps that it doesn't have to come exactly from us. It can help come from you guys who help support the show. So go over to patreon.com/Nartech and support it if you love us. And of course, a cool benefit for that is at the end of every episode, Brett will read out all the patrons, and you guys get live credits done in Brett's voice. So
that is it.
Thank you all. We'll see you for episode 142. Thanks Chris.
Guys. And a big shout out to our patrons, Ham and Egger, Bailey Robertson, Rob Wartpoint, Mark Schutz, Cypher Primus, Kyle Grimm, Richard Schaefer, Rude Days 93, Joshua Lago, Kevin Bacon Bits, Luke Rabbit, Danny Villiobos, Solitary Red, Jehudi MD, Sean, Josh Ayers, Derek Porter, Constantly Kenny, Matthew Green, Sean Santarude, Steven Salazar, Shadowist, and my name is Dan. Thank you all.